When we last left off, Duncan had been successfully saved by Jazz, and now we know that the Decepticons and Black Dragons are working for Tarn. So without further ado, let's begin. Our story picks up with Duncan finally being able to eat something, well, beneficial for him. I mean, like I said, he was kept in those Lex Luthor like conditions from Superman the animated series where he was eating nothing but like candy bars and barely even given a decent bathroom break. So now he's with his family and now he's able to eat everything up again. But now something else needs to be discussed. Rockwell's fortune. Duncan says Jazz can have it for all of its worth, for all the things that he's done and put him through with his lifestyle. Jazz can have all of it. And Jazz is taken aback, thinking that he can, easily use the laboratory as his own base of operations. But for right now, he wants to also give Duncan some of that inheritance so that he can actually invest in him getting his own car garage. And this is where Duncan says, well, now that you mention it, I guess you could. And so this is what happens. During the following weeks here, Jazz buys out a decent area of the beach. Now, keep in mind, this is still Los Santos, so where the beach houses and stuff are. He buys out a couple shops that are on the beach. And he gives them to Jeff, DJ, and Duncan. Duncan makes his own garage where he's able to fix just about anything. And even Kevin chimes in, actually helping them out. So they form a partnership here where they pretty much work together. Then there's Jeff, who actually runs a surf shop and, well, a party advertisement as well. So basically, he's got the entire surf shop to himself, and, well, he can run and manage any parties that are on the beach. And DJ, obviously, I know that boy's getting in a restaurant. So everyone's just living their happiest life. But what does Jazz do with Rockwell's old lab? Well, I think it's better that he just turns it into a base of operations. And even giving some of the scientists that used to work for Rockwell or that used to work for KSI another chance to, well, benefit here. They get to have access to some of Rockwell's other researches. And this is where, going through some of Rockwell's old storage, we find some of his unfinished cases, or an unfinished examination, this being a fossil. However, this isn't any ordinary fossil. It's a genus of an unknown specimen, to which this is where Jazz simply asks one of the scientists, what's this? To which this is one of the scientists pretty much replies, oh, it's a fossil. It's something that we discovered recently in Los Santos, or at least in the far out desert area, almost close to our borders. And it seems to have been here for thousands of years, same as the dinosaurs. To which he says, it doesn't look like a dinosaur. No, it doesn't. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know it's old. Probably just as old as them, or maybe even younger. So you're saying it's a more recent species. And this is where the scientist says, we're saying it might still be alive, but it's in an area where we cannot go, the Forbidden Zone. To which Jazz says, okay, what's in the Forbidden Zone, or this forbidden area? To which the scientist explains that the Forbidden Area is an island of, well, vastly different things, different creatures, different people, and it's the current base of operations for the mutants. To which Jazz says, mutants? You mean the X-Men? To which they say, yes, those guys. And, well, they're not too keen on letting people into their territory anytime soon. To which Jazz says, understandable. Kind of thought about doing something like that for the rest of the Autobots, especially during Age of Extinction. Or at least during those events, he would definitely, reminisce about when the humans were hunting them. To which Jazz says, right now that's water under the bridge. And maybe he'll have to go and visit this Forbidden Zone for himself. So, with that being said, Jazz is easily in charge of Rockwell's more scientific division and even makes Jury her own personal gym so that she can pretty much work out and train for any fighting tournaments that she may have. So, everyone gets to be happy. And even Ben, Kevin, and Gwen are also allowed to come in and help out with anything. Gwen helps with the scientific department. Kevin obviously does, the weapons mechanics and stuff like that. And Ben and Jazz just hang out and chill as the best buds that they are. So everyone's just winning. However, where is Tarn? Well, believe it or not, he's with the rest of the Decepticons and the Black Dragons at the far outskirts of the desert area in Los Santos. And pretty much he reminisces to the Black Dragons about his powers and abilities. He can absorb just about anything and, well, take it whole, or take its entire being whole. And this is where Kano wants a demonstration, into which this is where Sideswipe and Mirage, or at least the hollow shells of themselves, actually meet their end. As Tarn puts his hands on their chests. Keep in mind, they are a bit mindless at this point, as they're nothing more than drones. And he proceeds to absorb them, not just from their, alloys and materials, everything that they are, their very beings. And their cosmetics make up the weaponry and now their own added weaponry to Tarn. Sideswipe's blades become one, as does Mirage, and he also gets Mirage's cloaking ability and Sideswipe's speed, making him more dangerous. To which, this is where Tarn says, "This is amazing, isn't it? It's everything that he could ever be, everything that they could have ever been." And he laughs at this. He enjoys this, the thrill of being able to absorb another being whole. And this is where Kano simply asks, "So what's the difference between you and that Osmosian?" And Tarn simply says this: "He's superior." Kind of, a little bit of a Soundwave reference right there. And he says that he's flat out superior. Cybertronian technology has advanced humanity in ways that they can only dream of. And to think it'll be their undoing. As with this new KSI drone army, he could bring anyone in the world to his knees. To which this is where Kano says, "Okay, but what about these other heroes? The Avengers, the X-Men, Ben and his family, the plumbers, if you will, and Jazz." To which Tarn says, "Excuse me, who?" To which Kano says, "Yeah, Jazz. Haven't you seen the recent media?" To which Tarn says, "No. You mean that Autobot is still here? I thought the Autobots left her." To which Kano says, "Yeah, about that. He's still around. And he's not leaving anytime soon. He's got himself a little thing going on with the rest of these plumbers and stuff. And has also been a part of the Maximals for a while. Have you not noticed?" To which Tarn says perhaps he's been in stasis for quite some time. But right now, they need him dead. And they need that now. To which, this is where Kano looks like it's just one Autobot. What deal could he possibly be? To which, this is where Tarn simply points something out to Kano. If it was just one Autobot, how did he manage to track you down, find you, and then nearly topple your operations? You think he was just there to just get his brother and leave? Yes, that was the case. But here's the thing, Kano. If he puts his mind to it, he will get you. So do me a favor. Take the KSI drones and take the remaining Decepticons and hunt him down. To which Kano says, "You seem a little too worried for this one Autobot to bug you." And this is where Tarn, having enough of Kano's backmouth and sass, flicks him across the room with the other Black Dragons looking in shock. Meanwhile, Barricade and Thundercracker, two of the remaining Decepticons on Earth, actually just look at it like, "Yeah, we should have saw that coming, shouldn't we? Yeah, it's unfortunate." And so this is where Tarn makes his note that Autobot can single-handedly bring down everything that we hold dear. And that's if you miss this opportunity. Go and take care of him now. To which Kano gets up, brushes himself off, and tells the Black Dragons to mount up and get ready to go. We're going to make sure that this Autobot meets his end today. So, believe it or not, yeah, they're going to be hunting down Jazz. However, what's he doing currently? Well, he's pretty much out with the rest of them. He's out with Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and Jury at this moment. He's pretty much chilling by the beach while Duncan, Jeff, and DJ simply do their jobs. And he even tells them, never thought I wanted to go back to Cybertron. Or maybe I never thought I wanted to stay here on this planet. But being with you guys makes me realize that not all of humanity is bad. To which Ben says, yeah, to think if you actually left, we probably wouldn't be able to handle half of the situation with the Decepticons. To which Jazz says, don't downplay yourselves here. You got the Omnitrix, one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. Besides, all you need to do is just use upgrade on a lesser Decepticon and then just make it bigger. So they kind of do have this little bit of banter back and forth here. This is where they hear a scream. And well, this is where they actually see the black dragons pull up and Thundercracker descends from the sky while Barricade pulls up from another end. Realizing what the situation is, everyone gets ready for combat. However, Jazz, instead of actually just powering up with his hydrokinesis and electrokinesis, turns into a Cybertronian form to make the point very clear that he's going to take this as seriously as possible. And Ben goes into forearms, getting ready for combat. Into which, this is where they actually see all of these KSI drones appear. Every single variant of them, even being led by Stinger. And so, the battle begins, with the Team Plumber, or Team 10 over here, going up against the Decepticons and Black Dragon unit, the Black Decepticons. Oh no, that just sounds terrible, doesn't it? The Deceptidragons. You know what? Think of a good name down below for the organization. Matter of fact, that might go hard. But hey, let me know in the comment section down below. And so this is where the battle commences, and pretty much Gwen and Kevin are the ones evacuating people, while Jury, Ben, and Jazz are the ones handling everything. And they do make sure to get Duncan and his friends out of there, but they keep them close, as they don't know the Black Dragon's exact extent. And pretty much, they hide out in one of the few houses on the outskirts of the beach, and well, kind of just let the situation unfold here. Jazz is taking on Thundercracker and Barricade back to back, and even calls them lightweights, or light work for them. Meanwhile, Ben and Jory make quick work of the Black Dragons until Tremor steps in. So, Ben decides to take Tremor, while Jory takes on Cobra and Sabrina. And pretty much it's not much of a fight for her. She's actually just toying with them. Meanwhile, Kano simply sneaks off and makes his way towards the house where Gwen, Kevin, and Duncan, DJ, and Jeff are at the moment. So he makes his way in and has his usual confidence and swagger, getting ready to fight them. However, Kevin says he'll handle this and actually just simply absorbs a steel beam that's in the house. And well, I'm gonna say this. Poor Kano. Yeah, Kano gets beaten down by Kevin and is forced to ultimately retreat. However, Kevin actually makes sure that he stays put this time, actually utilizing one of his abilities, which was usually, metal manipulation, where he's able to like make constructs and everything around people. So he's able to basically bend a steel beam around Kano's arms and simply just bound him. Meanwhile, Gwen traps him in a mana bubble so that there is no further retaliation of escape, while Duncan, Jeff, and DJ simply just look on in absolute relief. However, they remember something, and they feel horribly stupid about this. They forgot Courtney, her law firm. If they are here, and if they were after them, then they would likely go after Courtney, right? And so, realizing what they're putting down, Kevin is the one that hops into his car and tries to drive as fast as he can to Courtney's house. And well, back on the beach, Jazz pretty much tears out Thundercracker's spark and crushes it. And this is where he turns his attention to Barricade. And he says, "You've been running for far too long, Barricade. You could surrender, or I could extinguish your spark. Or you could run. Go ahead. Give me a good reason to enjoy the thrill of it." Barricade, literally scared, I guess you could say oilless at this point, transforms as fast as he can and drives off. Jazz, not even wanting to give him a second to get away, transforms after him and pursues him like a wolf hunting his prey. And he just... It's a crazy car chase where Barricade is like frantically panicking. He even turns on his siren trying to get easy leeway, while Jazz is simply hounding him left and right, not even giving him a chance. And I mean not even a chance to get away at this point. It gets so bad that Barricade begins to beg to be let go. Begs Jazz to not harm him, to not kill him. He'll tell him everything. And this is where Jazz simply states, all you got to do is stop running. So Barricade simply does stop for a moment and transforms. However, Jazz, still going full speed, rams into Barricade, transforms, and begins beating the absolute mess out of him. However, he doesn't kill him. However, it's the sheer fact that Jazz had to chase him is the reason why Barricade is getting beaten down right now. Meanwhile, the Black Dragons have either fled or been subdued by Ben, or by Ben and Jury, with them taking Sabrina, Cobra, and Tremor, all hostage at the moment. So, pretty much, they round up the Black Dragons, while Jazz drags back a a beaten down Barricade. And again, this is where he begins to ask them the questions that, well, he needs to know. Who are they working for? Why did they come after them? And what was the reason? To which Kano and the Black Dragons say that they're not going to tell anything. However, Jazz simply looks at Barricade and charges up a lightning spear. And Barricade immediately starts singing like 69 did at court. And this is where he begins to explain everything. The KSI drones, who they're working for, and specifically Tarn himself, and the fact that Tarn had absorbed Sideswipe and Mirage. And Jazz at first didn't really catch that. He said, hold on, wait a minute. Who's back? And this is where Barricade says, Tarn, please just don't hurt me. And let me get this right. He did what to them? And this is where Barricade replies that, yeah, he absorbed them. All of them. They're gone. They're dead. He's using them now. And so, without any moments of hesitation, Jazz steps back as the group looks at him, wondering if he's about to do something drastic to Barricade. But he transforms into his vehicle form and drives off in the direction that Barricade gave him at full speed. Jury, knowing good and well what he's about to do, gets on her motorcycle and chases after him. However, this is a Jazz that's using full speed, so she's not keeping up very well. She can keep up, but it's not it's not well enough. And so Jazz makes his way out to the Los Santos desert, to where he goes through the facility. And when I tell you he goes through it like Optimus Prime did in Doctor the Moon against those Decepticons, he goes through it like a hot knife through butter, shooting everything, slashing through everything, and utilizing his electric and hydrokinetic powers to just destroy everything until he sees Tarn just sitting on a throne. The destroyed KSI drone just around him and everything. And this is where he simply smiles and states that Jazz coming here was all part of his plan. And I see you brought your little human girlfriend. To which Jazz looks behind him and sees Jury getting off her motorcycle. And, well, initially, he's not worried about her safety. He knows that she's capable. However, this is where all the alloy from the KSI drones begins to just move. And so Jazz immediately points his gun at Tarn, or his crescent cannon at Tarn, and asks him, what was this about? To which this is when Tarn simply says, it's very simple. The Autobots own Cybertron. I'm going to own Earth. While Optimus can own Primus all he wants, I'm going to own Unicron. And I'm going to do it by killing the very last obstacle to me on Earth. That being you. And so this is where Tarn begins to absorb all the matter from the KSI drones. They all form into him, making him look more like his IDW counterpart. And, well, the first thing he does is utilize his new fusion cannon. Jazz barely has time to get Jury out the way, so he has no other choice but to withstand the blast himself. Luckily, he uses Shockwave to actually wrap a water, I guess you could say, explosion bubble around himself, and then launches it at Tarn. However, Tarn swats it away like a fly. This is when Jazz utilizes a lightning strike, but that gets nullified immediately. And Tarn is just loving this here. the abilities of so many, and yet he can only do so little right now, as he has plans that not only involve killing you, but getting rid of any hero on this accursed planet. And so, with that being said, Jazz, realizing he's outmatched and outbeat, has no other choice but to grab Jury, transform, and get out of there. However, Tarn's not letting him go away. No, 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 no. He utilizes his thrusters in his new tank form, mind you, to chase Jazz down. And now we have ourselves a high-speed chase where Jazz is now the prey, while Tarn is the predator. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day.